It had only been a week after I started a new babysitting gig when one of the kids started freaking me out. Little Haley told me that her dad set a bunch of rules for her and her little sister Bonnie. When I was around, they didn't have to worry as much since he wasn't home. That didn't seem too shocking at first. I figured it was normal for parents to set rules for their kids, but something felt off when they started telling me more about those rules. The first thing they shared with me was that they had to be in bed by 9 when their parents were home. Although 9 seemed a bit early to me, it made sense as a bedtime for kids their age. At 7 and 5 years old, they were still pretty little. But on top of that, they weren't allowed to leave their rooms unless they really needed to for the bathroom. Their doors were also supposed to be locked, too. Something about the way that was worded made me concerned. Why would these people want their kids locked in their own rooms? I tried to brush it off, though. I also had to remember they were kids, so they might not have been repeating the rules accurately. The next rule was that they weren't allowed in the basement. This also made sense to me. When I interviewed for the job and started, Mr. Robinson said I shouldn't go down there at all. He explained that they recently developed a mold problem and that he was trying to fix that with an expert. Haley said that she and her sister also weren't supposed to bother their dad when he went down there. That seemed reasonable since they weren't supposed to be down there in the first place. But then they pointed out that he went down there every night. How do you know he goes down there every night? Haley grabbed onto my arm and answered, I can hear his footsteps at night, and I can hear the door open. I looked at Bonnie, who nodded along with what her sister said. That seemed weird to me. I understood wanting to deal with the mold problem, but going every night seemed strange. Then something chilling was revealed. Haley told me that one time she snuck out of her room to get some water. On the way to the kitchen, she passed by the basement and heard her dad talking. There were other noises, but she didn't know what they were, so she got her water and rushed back to the room. I could understand her fear of getting caught, overriding any curiosity she felt. I asked if those noises sounded like they could have been another person. A sense of dread came over me when she nodded. That lingered in my mind, even after I put the kids to bed. I knew there'd be a little more time until their parents got home. With a reckless curiosity overwhelming me, I went to the basement door. After I unlocked it, I exercised caution and opened it slowly to avoid making a lot of noise. The last thing I wanted was for the girls to tattle on me. The lights flickered on as I flipped the switch at the top of the steps. Carefully, I descended the stairs into the basement. Everything appeared normal. There were boxes and furniture stacked high. Suddenly, a noise made me shift my focus back to the stairs. There was something behind them. I approached and used my phone's flashlight to illuminate the area. What I saw made me choke up. Under the stairs, a woman was bound by her arms and legs. She was gagged and blindfolded, too. She began squirming against her restraints and making muffled sounds. My immediate instinct was to help her, but I remembered that the Robinsons would be returning soon. If I took too long, I could get locked down here with her. My heart felt like it was about to explode. I cursed my limited time and practically flew up the stairs. With panicked haste, I shut and locked the door. My fingers shook as I dialed 911. Then I jumped as I turned and saw Haley standing next to the closed door. Did you see the mold? I caught my breath and told her yes. After taking a beat to calm myself, I reminded her that she needed to be in bed before her parents came home. She told me she needed a cup of water, so I helped her get that in a flash. I escorted her to her room and got her tucked back in bed. Haley, I need you to do me a favor. A favor? Yes, I need you to promise me that you won't tell your father I went into the basement. Because of the mold? I took a deep breath and half lied. If your parents hear I went down there, I could get in a lot of trouble, and they might not let me come back to hang out with you. Haley took in this information. Okay, was all she said. After I put her back to bed, I went back downstairs and called 911 again. As soon as the line picked up, I started giving the operators all the information I could, the address, names, and details about what I found. He was telling me to calm down when I heard a car pull up outside. They were home. He was home. I told the operator what was happening. He told me the cops would be there soon and to stay on the line if I could. The front door opened up and the Robinsons came in. "Okay, Mom, I'll see you in a bit," I said loud enough for them to hear. Mrs. Robinson approached and asked how the night went. I told her the girls were as good as they usually were, and that they had been put to bed already. Their father took his leave to go check on them, while his wife took me aside to pay me. I thought about warning her and telling her what I had done, but I realized that could go terribly wrong. It had to be the cops, otherwise I would be the person who destroyed her family. I excused myself and told the mom I should wait outside for my ride back. She thanked me again, and I gave her the best smile I could. As I stepped out of the front door, I could see the father coming down the stairs, with a grim expression on his face. I shut the door behind me, keen on avoiding any other interactions with him. That was when I saw two officers approaching. When I confirmed I was the one who made the call, they went up to the door. I watched them enter, knowing that the woman would be found and her torment would come to an end. After a month of moving, painting, and renovating our new home, things took a really weird turn. My girlfriend, Liz, and I decided it was finally time to move in together after 8 months of dating. It took a while, but eventually we found a cheap place that was a bit of a fixer-upper. We figured it might be better to buy it cheap and do as much of the work ourselves as we could. Then we'd bring in the experts. Changing the paint and a few of the appliances was manageable enough, but we started surveying more of the house for bigger renovations. That led us to the basement, which definitely needed some work. There was some old furniture there that came with the house. A lot of it was dusty and dirty, so we decided to break it down to toss it. One day, I just took a sledgehammer to the tables and couches. I figured the broken pieces would be easier for both of us to throw out. In the middle of breaking them into smaller pieces, I accidentally hit one of the walls. I was disappointed to see that the hammer had actually made a hole in the wall. Upon closer inspection, I realized there was more behind the wall. Knocking on it revealed that it was hollow compared to the other walls, so there was actually more space down there. After bringing Liz down to take a look at it, I decided to bring down the rest of the wall. With the sledgehammer, it didn't take too long. The shattered wall didn't reveal much. There wasn't anything else stored behind the false wall. Instead, there was a solid-looking door. I was pretty surprised to see something like that. There was no telling what kind of room the previous owners would have in a basement like this. After exchanging looks with Liz, I grasped at the handle. Surprisingly, it wasn't locked. It clicked and opened with minimal creaking. A strong odor hit us as soon as the door was fully open. Whatever was in there had to be dead or rotten. I closed the door so Liz and I could go up and get face masks. When we felt at least a little more prepared, we went back down and opened the door again. With the aid of flashlights, we were able to see in the mysterious room. We were both shocked to find that it was full of things we had never seen before. The floor and walls were marked with strange-looking symbols. I couldn't say for certain, but it looked like they had some connection to the occult. On a few tables, there were books and candles that looked like they were more than decades old. In the middle of the room, there was some kind of pile. We couldn't figure out what it was, but it had to be the source of the smell. It took us a week to decide what we wanted to do about the room. In that time, after opening the door, we began noticing strange things in other areas of the house. At night, we would hear noises, as if someone was walking around and moving things. Those noises stopped when we got up to investigate. On occasion, we'd also get hit with that same rotting smell in other areas of the house. That remained even after deep cleaning and spraying air freshener everywhere. The worst was seeing shadows move out of the corners of our eyes. But it wasn't just seeing things. We really felt like we weren't alone in our house. After doing some research and consulting experts online, we figured that the room had to have been used for some kind of demonic ritual. Hearing what that ritual could have involved pushed us to have the secret room blessed. Once that was done, we would have the door sealed off again. We hoped that would be enough to put an end to all the strange things we had been experiencing. Through some friends and relatives, we found a few spiritual experts to cleanse the room as best as they could. We brought in a priest to read a few passages from the Bible before sprinkling holy water everywhere. Later on, a spiritual doctor came to burn some sage and cleansing incense. Finally, a paranormal investigator we connected with online created a salt circle around the room. He also poured some along the doorway to keep any bad spirits at bay. After all of that was done, we sealed up the door behind a layer of bricks and drywall. That process took a whole week. As an added measure of protection, we also put up several protective symbols and artifacts on the basement walls. The experts were kind enough to give them to us. Thankfully, the moving sounds and loud footsteps stopped. We'd wake up at night without the fear those noises caused. The worst smell in the house was the garbage whenever one of us forgot to take it out. And there were no more shadowy figures in the dark. But deep down, we still knew that something awful had probably taken place in that room. Deep down, we knew that there were untold miseries within that secret room, and we had to live with that knowledge.